shipped out in the back of the van with the blue light. Look, I'm in the hospital.
You need 999, you need to be in A&E. Tear to the back of my brain. Shit, I'm on my way out here. Both lucky that we're still sat here now.
An ambulance came out, and by the time they got there, I think they only needed to walk in and take one look at me. What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Shak Down. I'm totally super excited to have Karl Pemberton on with us today. I'm sure many of you from the area around here will know Karl from Active Financial, and we're just going to get into it and have a little bit of a chat, see what he's all about, what makes him tick, and have a bit of a crack. So yeah, hope you enjoy this episode, and let's get into it. So what's up, Karl? How are you doing?
Mate. I'm all right. I've got a belly full, so I'm happy.
What have you had to eat?
The special at lunchtime was steak pie and chips.
Steak pie and chips. Where from?
5 Houses.
Ah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, but then I'm going to have to lay it on when I get home, and if my missus has done tea, I'm going to have 2 big meals, which I don't normally do.
Yeah, but we keep that a secret. This will come out after your tea, so it's all good in the hood. All right, Karl. So obviously I know you. I know what you do and what you're all about, but a few minutes on the table for you to let our viewers know who you are, what you're all about. Plug your business. Be unashamedly in marketing mode. Go for it, bro.
Class. Thanks, mate. So I'm the managing director at Active. We're chartered financial planners, which is financial advisors. We look after people's money, which is not easy at the minute. Everything's up in the air, isn't it? I think there's lots going on in the world, which doesn't make our job easy right now. So yeah, financial advisors, been the MD for 15 years. It was a family business. I took over from my dad. And before that, I worked in the banking world. We're probably the largest financial advising firm looking after this area of Teesside and potentially the northeast. And we've got a brilliant team of really knowledgeable people who are happy to help people in terms of planning their future, which will lead on to other things we're going to talk about, won't it? Because I think it's fair to say none of us know exactly what our future looks like, really.
Yeah, man. So that's pretty cool. So we got to know about Active Financial. Karl's been kind enough to bring some merch in for us. So if you guys out there looking for financial advice, then hit them up, particularly if you're from this part of the world in Teesside. But I'm assuming you take customers from farther afield, yeah?
Yeah, we've got clients all over the country, to be fair, which I suppose is made easier because of COVID. Pre-COVID, it was getting in the car and jumping on a train and going all over, but yeah, digital technology certainly made that far easier than it used to be. Yeah,
definitely. I think post-COVID, we're in a different space and people are willing to do business in different ways and operate in different ways. Although having said that, I do think there's a big push at the moment bringing people back into a workspace as such. Whatever that looks like, but it seems to be a thing at the moment. I've noticed people trying to get back together.
Yeah, I actually think it's bringing a lot of people back towards Teesside as well. If we're going to be, Leo about this, I think there's a lot of people from outside the area see the skills and the benefits of Teesside now, which probably didn't quite a few years ago. So I think there's more opportunity for Teesside businesses to get work from outside the area because we are put on a bit more of a map now, aren't we, compared to, certainly 4 or 5 years ago where people just thought the place was on a downward trajectory, whereas I genuinely don't believe it is. Yeah. Granted, it's hard for some and harder for others, but, I do think we've got a good opportunity around here at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've got a lot to celebrate. There's lots of investment being going on. I guess what I'm involved in, if you're talking about the sort of and the activity we do in Noodle, it's all about investing in businesses and things like that. So we're really tuned into it, and we're trying to sort of sending a message back to the people who make decisions on how they can create the environment for businesses to start and grow and thrive, and help to invest and help to act as a catalyst by providing these schemes. We're trying to feed that back to them, what the message is off the ground, because it is I personally think there's a cost of trading crisis right now. It's mad, actually, because today we've just had a new prime minister, which is like, was it 40 days after the prime minister that he's taking over from? So it just seems like it's all been a bit turbulent and whatnot. And in general, for business, it seems like we need to try and plug on and support each other, but also need that support back. So I don't know, what you're in the financial advisory game, so you need to be telling us what we need to be looking out for. What do you think?
Well, I don't necessarily want to wear a political hat, but I think that, well, whether it's your business or our business, I think the one thing we all want is a bit of stability, isn't it? If you can project and plan where you're going to be, you've got a better chance of achieving it, irrespective of what you do for a living. If you can't do that, it just makes our job a lot bloody harder, doesn't it? In terms of, how can you do that as a business owner? How can you plan for, in your job, helping and supporting other businesses? If you don't know what next month's going to look like, 6 months is going to look like, it's really, really difficult. So I just think that the biggest thing that I'm craving right now is just some stability, so we can calm things down, and at least then we can try and start putting some plans in place of what 2023 is going to look like. It sounds boring, but that you do tend to achieve things if you've got a plan, and you've got a better chance of achieving them if that plan goes to plan. Everything that's gone on in the world over the last, I'd probably even go back as far as saying coming up 3 years ago, isn't it, from COVID? It's almost thrown everything out the window, hasn't it? And best laid plans have just gone, to rack and ruin. But at least if you had a plan, you're more likely to come through the other side. I think those people who don't have a plan, or have been winging it, or don't necessarily have those skills of running a business, or had that foresight to pull together the what ifs, they're the people who'll struggle. And, if we're going to learn anything through 2020's dramas, then have a plan for this next 6 to 12 months, because I think you're going to need it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's potentially a turbulent time coming up. They say cost of living crisis. I think in a business sense, it's a cost of trading crisis. And it definitely is a crisis, and it cuts across all kinds of sectors. In the hospitality and leisure industry, people can't afford to stay open because of the energy prices, and that has a direct impact on if you're a manufacturer, and it's right across the piece. But just interestingly, actually, just staying on that track, what are your thoughts? Are you hearing from people, or from your own perspective, like right now, what is the view on kind of growth and investment and just sort of putting cash into projects in general from a business perspective? Do you get a sense of hesitancy?
Yeah, I think there's so many different factors to that, though. I would have said, first and foremost, Teesside is a little bubble. I think we are, again, despite the caveats of there's obviously some people who struggle more than others, and I get that, so it's fair to just add that caveat in there. But I think Teesside is riding a crest of a wave in terms of inward investment. Now, me running my business, I don't gain anything by Tees Works coming to Teesside as an example, Treasury jobs going to Darlington as an example. They're the things that everyone knows about, which is why I've mentioned them. But that euphoria or that optimism of we're on the up, I hope will indirectly affect Active and our business. So I'd say we as Tees Valley have got an opportunity at the moment. We're very good at mourning when things don't go our way, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's just a Teessider's way of dealing with things.
Yeah, for sure.
But if we have got this opportunity, you know, taking politics out of it, if it all happens as has been talked about, then I think we've got an opportunity to make a name for ourselves that we can all benefit from if we all have that optimistic mindset. Now, take the Tees Valley thing out of the situation, you know, I think the flip-flopping about of the government over the last, 6 weeks or so, we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, then we're going to U-turn on it, now we're not going to do that. I do think that makes people think twice about investing.
Yeah.
So I would say on a national basis, I do think there'll be a lot of companies who are sat on the hands and thinking, I'm just going to wait and wait for things to settle down before I press that button and do things. And that isn't necessarily the best thing, because I'm always, and I always used to be a glass half full type of person. I am still that more than I'm not. But we need some optimism, don't we?
Yeah.
We need to be positive, otherwise none of us would get out of bed on a morning and run our businesses.
Yeah.
If we thought the world was going to end and thought it was going to get worse, we'd all just wrap it in and go and work for someone, wouldn't we? And not have the chew.
Yeah, and it is a chew.
Yeah.
It is a chew, but you get lots of benefits as well with that. It's a crazy place, isn't it? I think starting and running your own business, and particularly when you try and do it in a time like this. I think since 2010, you know, and the age of austerity and all of that carry on was there. Then we've had a big issue with COVID, and now we've got what's happening here. There is lots of opportunities to take advantage of, but we've got this overarching kind of uncertainty. What we sort of pick up from our investment kind of network, angel investors and PE network, is that they're hanging back to see what the government policy is going to be. And ultimately, this is just my opinion, is if you're sort of on an economic kind of crisis, you want people to be in a position to be able to go out and spend money. So investing in starting businesses and growing in businesses is very key. It's all well and good, like you referenced, having marquee projects. Yeah, so if we had Tesla come here tomorrow and start building factory, it'd be brilliant. Yeah. You know, if my children had got a job in there, I'd be very happy with, you know, as an engineer for Tesla, whatever, good career. But at the same time, we need to, as a small business network, be able to leverage some of the big investments that are coming, and also just take advantage of more people in the area and all the rest of it. And if we grow, you know, there's more people out there spending money, there's more people buying Teslas, there's more people buying a milkshake in the local milkshake bar and so on and so forth. So for me, I think like a strategy of investment on an SME basis, as well as having large marquee projects, is very important nationally, but particularly in Tees Valley. And I just want to touch on the point you said, we're good at mourning, but I think if you don't bang the drum a little bit, you know, there's that phrase, isn't there, about beggars and they can't be choosers, you know, or, you know, Shyburns getting out, I guess. Yeah,
and it's hard not to comment on these big projects without delicately stepping around politics, because politics is a minefield, and I hate politics at the minute. I used to love it, you know. There was a time when I would have been tempted to go down that road as another. Well, it's not really a sideline, is it? But as a tangent to go off on. But I think it's horrible at the minute. So I said to you when we were chatting before, I've always got an opinion on something. It doesn't mean my opinion's right. That's the thing. But I think we've just become too polarised as society now. And I hate it how you can't have an opinion without someone else trying to pull you down and tell you you're wrong. Yeah. And I just think it's dangerous, because just because someone's got an opinion, someone should be allowed to have an opinion as long as it's expressed in a, in a diplomatic and the right sort of way. You know, I don't like people having an opinion and chaining themselves across a road and blocking ambulances and fire engines and throwing stuff over oil paintings. I don't agree with that type of having an opinion. There's a way of doing it in my personal opinion. But I think we've become polarised where you're right. People see their opinions as, no, I am right.
Yeah.
And someone else will shout, no, you're wrong. And then you end up in a proper head sort of battle, don't you? And then you think, no, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
10 years ago, you could have an opinion and be quite, I don't know. You could just, well, it's like if me and you went for a pint and spoke about the Borough match, we'd probably have a totally different opinion on who played well, who didn't play well. You'd laugh about it, you'd probably call each other a few names, but you'd still stay in your round and buy each other a pint as the day goes on.
Yeah.
You wouldn't fall out and have a spat and block each other on social media, as it seems to happen in today's world, which I think it's just stupid. It just seems so childish. And because of that, I don't think I ever could get involved in politics. I don't think, I haven't got the stamina. I think my toys would come out the pram.
Yeah.
Too much to do it. And to be fair, my skin's not thick enough.
Yeah.
Either. I'm fortunate, I don't know about you, but I'm fortunate where I know a few MPs, post and present, and I know Ben as mayor, and I got to know Jessie in her last campaign a little bit as well. And I one question I always say at them all is, how's your skin thick enough to take the flack and the abuse that comes your way? Because I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want my kids seeing it. I don't think I'd cope very well. Could you? I
think that's the problem with being in the public light, isn't it? No matter what capacity it is, you get that with anybody. You get that with anybody who's an influencer or a celebrity of some form, a boxer or a sports person or a politician. I think this day and age, the platform has been created to chat shit. And it's really easy to do it, but there's too many keyboard warriors out there, and to a certain degree, I was kind of having this conversation earlier with my brother about something completely unrelated, but it was on the same track. And we were saying at the end of the day, you either have the nuts to go and do it and jump in and take the risk and do something, or you don't. And that is the difference maker between some certain people in certain industries or whatever. But no matter what, you're still opening yourself up once you start doing things like this, putting a video up, going on a podcast or doing a podcast, or posting regularly on social platforms. It's easier because the next man can write negative comments about you quite easily. And it's not the same as if you were presenting to a room of 50 people and they just stood up and started heckling you or having a go, because they're right there with you. So I think, it to a certain degree, it's very hard to do, but to a certain degree, I think you just have to think, whatever. But it isn't easy. I don't know how well I'd react to it if it was in high volume every single day, as you've just sort of alluded to.
But then people moan, don't they, that whether it's current government or current MPs or whatever, they always say, they're just in it for themselves. But is that because they put barriers up, or is it part of the front that they have to wear as part of their, shield of armour, thick skin?
Yeah.
Is it what they have to put up so that they don't let it get to them?
Probably. It's probably a coping mechanism.
Yeah, so it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
If they show the real selves, or if they are, like me, where your skin's not that thick and you react or you bite to a comment or something daft like that, well, they probably wouldn't last long.
Yeah, I think
so you're vilified. Everyone that's in those positions are vilified, but yet everyone craves someone who's normal, someone who's down to earth, someone who's served public life, someone who's lived a normal life and had a normal job. But I don't think we're built to be in that sort of public eye and, wanting someone to pull you down every minute of every day. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, even just if you're not in such a prominent role, when you receive criticism or something like that, it's not nice, is it? I think you must have to teach yourself how to deal with that, carry on, and go from there. I mean, sometimes I think about things like that and think I'd have a go at it, and I would be myself, because I think over the years I've realised, stop trying to conform to something that you're not, because you don't perform right in those constraints, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's one of them. I think we could go on about this kind of stuff for the next hour and still be going round in circles, because it's a bit of a minefield, isn't it? So let me pull you back in time a little bit, Karl. Tell us about, if you don't mind, tell us about Karl Pemberton in the young days. You know, what was your background like? What was school like? What was your life growing up like? How did you get to sort of the point at which you might have went to university? I don't know anything about you, so tell us. So tell us.
I always say that I would just typify myself as a normal lad. I was not a high achiever at school. I was confident when I was younger. The problem with confidence when you're younger is it doesn't always come across well, does it? You know, let's be honest. We can only say that as a older, greyer, balding man. How
does it come across, just out of interest?
I think sometimes you just be seen as cocky, can't you? But it's not. I don't think it's cockiness. I think it's confidence, but you don't necessarily know how to channel it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You're naive, aren't you? I know it. My son's 17.
Yeah.
And sometimes he's got, like, you know, the confidence of a peacock.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to knock him down a peg or two.
Yeah.
Because it's unhealthy sometimes. And I do think now I know exactly what my mum and dad felt like with me. But then the flip side is sometimes you've got to harness that confidence, because rather than knock it out of them, obviously not physically, but you don't want to knock it out of them, because that can be the catalyst between them going on to achieve success in the future, or not having the confidence to even try. So for me, early me, and I think a lot of people have heard this before, I didn't necessarily want to be in finance. Numbers have always been my best subject in terms of if we're going back to like school and college, but I always wanted to be in the RAF. So I thought I'd go down that route, but then the bank, Yorkshire Bank, offered me my first role, so I took it. And to be fair, I took the easy option, and I was at Gresham branch of just at the top of Linthorpe Road, around the back of where we are now. So you know, I had my first 5 years just up the road, which was brilliant, great grounding. 18-year-old, you're on counter, you're meeting every type of walk of life that comes into a bank.
Yep.
And you're in at the deep end, and you sink or swim. So I've never been one to stand still though. So I was always wanting to. I think if you think you've mastered something, you want to try and progress to the next level. So I always try to push myself, and I'm just really fortunate, grateful that I worked in the banking industry when the banks were brilliant. You don't have that necessarily now, or certainly the majority of the banks aren't geared up in the way that they were 25 years ago, 27 years ago as it is.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Do you know, funnily enough, the one opposite Forbes building?
Yeah, on the corner, yeah.
So that bank, funnily enough, was the one that, as all the way through my childhood, I can remember my dad going in.
Yeah.
Whenever he wanted some money to do something, you know, a business with it. So yeah, I remember the branch quite well, even though I never banked there. But as a kid, getting dragged in there with our dad to get money. I believe the guy who ran it then was called Mr. Brown, if I recall correctly.
It'll be Ronnie Brown.
Yeah, so
great guy.
Yeah, well, that my dad always says. I wish the banking system was like when I could just go and see Mr. They always call him Mr. Brown, and get it sorted out. Talk to him. They know they're good for the money.
Yeah.
Give them the money. Let them go and invest in a business. Get it up and running. Pay the money back. Jobs are good. And now access to finance is a flipping nightmare at the moment. But anyway, separate subject. So yeah. So. Cool. So, did you were going to go in the RAF? You went into banking.
Yeah,
then
and
what?
Like I say, thank God, touch wood. It worked quite well. I think my impatience obviously worked in my favour. The banks were going through quite a lot of change and transition at that point. And the bank started to move away from, it always had a culture that was, you've been in the longest, so you're next in line for that next promotion, which loads of industries probably still work like that, don't they? But the bank started to move away from that and really started to look at skills. And I'll use the word ambition, but I don't know if ambition's the right word. You know, if you show an interest in progressing, that's often half the battle. Because if someone's going to give you a job and promote you, they want to know that you've got the desire to do it and the hunger to do it and the ability. And that's, again, makes you get out of bed every morning and do a good job. So I think there was a lot of people in the bank who probably sat and tried to wait their turn. Never happened. I used to apply for jobs on the basis of there's not a cat and hell's chance I'm going to get it, but at least they know that's where I want to be. And probably 4 out of 5 times I got the job. And it's at that point you think, shit, all right, I need to book my ideas up now and actually try and learn it. But I had the bottle to go for it in the first place. And I think going back to that confidence, I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have had the confidence to go for it because they would have thought, well, I'm not qualified, I don't have those skills, I haven't got what they're asking for. But my view was, I'd rather go for it and get turned down and then get feedback of what I need to do to get it next time. And that was my attitude in the sort of 90s and early 2000s, which obviously worked quite well. It paid a lot of people off because I'd sort of overtook a few people, but I don't know. I won't say I didn't care back then, but I wasn't as bothered about that. Because my view was, well, if you haven't applied for it, how can you expect to get the job and have a go at me if you've not even applied in the first place?
That's an interesting one. Is it your, and I don't mean this in a ruthless way, but is it your problem to be worried about other people not moving up the ladder and having the desire and drive to go off and do it in whatever way possible and make it happen? Is that your problem?
I've gone through cycles in my life where when I was younger, I didn't used to care. And care's not exactly the right word, but I wasn't bothered about upsetting someone if it was all done for the right reasons. Like you say, if I got a job because I had the balls to apply for it, I went through the interview and I was the best candidate out of 10 people who were interviewed, well, why should I be bothered if someone spat the dummy out if they didn't apply for it in the first place? Now that, being 18, 19, 20-year-old, used to ruff people's feathers up. So when you say, what was I like as a young'un, I would say, I probably paid a few people off. But would I do anything different? No, probably not, because it's got me to where I am now. I've gone through cycles then where I cared too much about other people, but then that can wrap you up in knots and, you know, cause anxieties galore because you're too bothered about what people think. So sometimes you make no decision. And then gone through, again, period with Active where you think you're invincible and the business is going great guns and you think nothing can stop you, and then you get poorly like we got the other year, and suddenly then you start thinking, oh God, better calm down again and start being a bit more cautious. So I don't know. I've gone through phases in life.
Interesting. So you've just kind of alluded to a place we were going to go in this podcast. So let's get it over and done with, I think, and have a bit of a crack about it, if that's cool with you.
Yeah.
So we've got something in common other than that we're running businesses in Teesside, and some mutual contacts of ours had mentioned to us both that we should have a bit of a chat about it, which we done recently, didn't we? And compared notes, and it struck us both as crazy as like almost like a carbon copy of events and things that fell out of it. But publicly, to date, I haven't really gone out and said anything to anybody about what happened, but literally it's a year pretty much a year ago, and I know it's pretty much a year ago for yourself.
Yeah.
We both had strokes.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about it, and hopefully people can kind of get some insight into maybe how we've been over the last year. I think it's important for me, like why I wanted to, when you said let's talk about it, I said, all right, I think maybe just give a bit of insight and talk about the challenges and our own experiences of what that was and how that went. So do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, go on then. I suppose I've been quite open about it from the start, and the reason why I went down that route, as lots of people know, I've said it to you since day one, I regard myself as an open book. Rightly or wrongly, that comes with faults and flaws, and sometimes you say too much, and sometimes people form opinions about you. But my view is if you're open and honest and tell everybody everything, well, if people criticise you for that, then that's more their problem than ours. So I was quite honest last year about what was going on. Mine was more because, I don't know, how would you say it? I used to run at 100 miles an hour all the time. My diary was full. I used to buzz off it. I used to love going from meeting to meeting to meeting, helping people, going for a coffee, have a proper stand-up seminar with 100 people, and I would just help anybody that asked, whether it was client, people in the business, other business owners, etc. So I used to be buzzing about all the time, and suddenly I couldn't, and I was flawed. Obviously, we were both hospitalised. We both didn't have, well, you had a better experience of hospital than I did. So suddenly I disappeared overnight. And what frustrated me, why I was open about it, was because I was being hounded. And although my out of office said I'm not available, although my mobile said I'm unavailable, people still then used to WhatsApp you and text you, I know you're not around, but.
Yeah.
I was in hospital. I was laid out on my sofa. Couldn't move for a good few weeks. And I thought to myself, hang on, my out of office says I'm off due to, I can't remember what I put now. Not medical emergency, but due incapacitated or something daft like that. And people were still hounding me, and I actually thought, how bad's that?
Yeah.
And it paid me off, if I'm honest, because all they were bothered about was trying to just push their own agenda without actually looking at what my message was. They clearly got an out of office, not read it, and were just trying to push what they were doing. So it really paid me off. So I thought, no, I'm going to put it out there. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I've been in hospital. This is what's gone on. Please give me some time. It's ridiculously frustrating. It was a ridiculously frustrating period because, I know you've gone through exactly the same. We didn't know what it was at the time.
Yeah.
I was getting passed from pillar to post. Doctor, hospital saying there's nothing wrong. Doctor saying you need 999, you need to be in A&E, and I was just constantly just getting passed around this circle all the time. I was, just laid up, and not even laid up, laid down. I couldn't even lift my head up.
Yeah.
And I was, I've always been a glass half full type of person, but at that time I thought, shit, I'm on my way out here. What is this? This pain in my head was just unbearable to the point where I can't pick my head up.
Yeah.
And it was, we've all had probably bad hangovers in our lives where you thought, plumbing heck, I can't even open my eyes. But when it's 24/7, day after day, week after week, it becomes quite demoralising. And it's hard not to think the worst when the doctor's saying, can't find anything, and you're saying, I physically can't get up. How do you, I don't know. So I think, it was probably a bit of cry for help putting it out there. It was to stop people hounding me. I wasn't doing it for a sympathy vote, but when I say cry for help, it was, does anyone have a clue what's going on here?
Yeah.
Because no one's giving me any answers. And, I regard myself as lucky, and we spoke about it the other week, didn't we, about we're both lucky that we're still sat here now, and to the outside world, everyone would probably assume everything's still okay and we've come through it brilliantly. I don't think people would appreciate probably the mental scars of what it does and how it changes you. You know, and I always regard myself as lucky that A, I'm here now, B, I had a good family that were supportive. I had a great team around me at work who just let me be off, if that makes sense. You know, they picked up all my work, didn't have to worry about anything, which was great. And some really good mates who, you know, I regard, you know, who helped me out massively. I think I said to you before that, you know, Paul Williams, our old MP, he's a GP at North Tees. If it wasn't for him pulling a few strings, I don't think he'll thank me for naming him, but, you know, I was ridiculously grateful for the help and pointers he gave me. And I suppose the other thing to caveat at this time is, you know, last October, November was, it seems weird to think about it now, but that was like peak Omicron. Remember when COVID was going on? And hospitals didn't want you in.
Yeah.
They wanted you literally, if you walked through the door, it was like, is your arm falling off? If not, bugger off, get out. That's how I felt. Obviously, they probably said they weren't like that, but that's how it felt at the time.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to get some answers, really hard to get supported. Paul was absolutely phenomenal for me, and he actually told me to use my private health insurance, which I'm grateful I had. And if I hadn't have had that, I wouldn't have had the scans, and they wouldn't have found this tear to the back of my brain, which, you know, can be caused by a bleed or a stroke when everyone else was, well, not everyone else, the GPs were worried. The GPs were saying something's seriously wrong, but the hospitals were saying, no, I can't find anything, get yourself off home. And it's mad, because you dread to think, if I hadn't have had private health insurance, where would I be now? What would I be doing? You've had similar?
Similar, yeah. It's funny because I didn't realise you were open with people about it from the outset. The reason why I wasn't is because literally I live on my own most of the time, so it's something like that's quite difficult, obviously, because you're by yourself when it's happening. But I'm lucky that I've got, you know, my brothers and some good friends, like locally, and neighbours that kind of were able to help me afterwards. But my dad had actually just come out of the hospital from suffering a heart attack. So when I did tell some of my family members, my brothers and whatnot, look, I'm in the hospital, or whoever told them. I don't even think it was me who told them, but basically I remember saying, you know, I don't want it to be spoken about, because the last thing I wanted on my conscience is bloody tell my parents that, oh, your son's had a stroke, and they haven't seen me either. It's quite a significant condition, isn't it? Like, it's a significant, like a heart attack, you know. So I was thinking in my head, I'll bloody give him another one and he'll drop down dead, so I'm not having that on my head, so just don't tell anybody. And then it just sort of really went from there. And as much as you put yourself out there here, you know, for work and the stuff that we do, I'm not a very forward person. I'm quite a private and keep myself to myself kind of a person. I do it for work, and then it stops when I put the tools down for the day kind of thing. So, you know, it was funny because you're saying about like having people around you. We just kind of started, man. I only started my business not long before that. And we launched in the April time, and that happened in the October. So it was a bit like, fuck. Just like bombshell that's just happened. And luckily, you know, the guys were able to all jump on the tools and keep things going. And, you know, I just sort of was in the background. A lot of people didn't know, one, because I hadn't said anything to anybody, and two, because, you know, part of what we do on social media and whatnot makes it appear that you're meeting people. When we have like a library of photographs that, you know, the guys who do our social media and everything have on file, and they're consistently putting it out. So the message externally is that it's business as usual, but really you weren't. And I was very much the same as you. I had a slightly different experience in that when I had the headache thing. And funnily enough, we spoke about this the other day, but sat here right now on the left side of my head is a headache. Yeah. And it's just there, it's there quite often. But back then, there was quite a weird feeling, headaches and strange feeling. And eventually, as the day progressed, it got worse and worse to the point at which, I had to sort of do something about it. And then an ambulance came out, and by the time they got there, I think they only needed to walk in and take one look at me, and I think I was getting shipped out in the back of the van with the blue lights, and I can remember the ambulance guy. I don't even know what I was saying, bro. Like, I was on another fucking planet. Like, I think they must be trained, obviously, that these are the signs of whatever shite I was rambling on to them. And I can just remember him saying, I've got the bat phone out, mate. And I was thinking, what the fuck? And basically they were phoning ahead to the hospital, so we got taken in. I got taken in, and I can't complain. I mean, it was amazing, like how quick they were jumping on you. I was referring to them as like the Ghostbuster team the other day to you, wasn't I? Like these people with these massive rucksack things, big square rucksacks. So I was there in the stroke ward for a while, and ultimately, mate, it comes down to this. The top and bottom of it is I feel very grateful that the lasting effects of it are not what I seen in that fucking ward, bro, because that was next level. Like,
it's grim. I remember saying to the people after I came out that I was in a 4-man ward. The guy next to me couldn't speak.
Yeah.
The guy opposite me couldn't feed himself and was incontinent. And the guy over the way, sort of diagonally opposite me, I can't remember. He was a sound guy, but he could barely move. He was really chatty, lovely guy from Billingham, and again, I said to you, it was in one sense it was reassuring, because I was laid there with my headphones on, listening to podcasts and trying to do some work emails, or at least telling people, bugger off, leave me alone, I'm in hospital. So I wasn't presenting as a stroke victim. So, compared to how some of those guys were, I was fortunate, and I'm glad I got out of there. But the problem is, because I probably looked healthier than anyone else who was in there, they didn't do half the tests. I'm not going to say that they should have, because that's wrong, but they probably didn't. They weren't as thorough. They probably wanted the bed. They probably thought, hey, he's all right, he can walk about, get him home.
That's part
out
of
hospital. Don't want people catching COVID and all that sort of stuff. It's I don't know. I'm not going to knock them. I don't want to slate them. It's really hard to get your head around what things were like 12 months ago. It seems like a lifetime ago.
I think it's a good point to make, because whilst I said that, like, I was shipped in and put on the ward really efficiently, after that I experienced what you've just said, and I think it's because I did have quite a lot of, like, my face had dropped, I couldn't move my legs and arms, like basically the left side of my body had been switched off.
Yeah.
So that was weird. It's one way to put it, isn't it?
I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
I was really slurry.
Yeah.
I used to say it was like I'd had 5 or 6 pints.
Yeah.
You're trying to hold a conversation together, thinking you're talking properly, but really you were really slurry and not clear in what you were saying. My missus, she used to ask me to repeat myself, or she'd say, you're not making sense. I couldn't get my words out. Still, both of us have still got that now, haven't we?
Yeah.
I get mind blocks, can't think of the word, say the complete wrong word, which can be embarrassing at times, or you can just totally lose your train of thread of thought, which I think we can we've got better at coping with it as the years gone on, isn't it? We both probably can deal with it better now. But 12 months ago, yeah, it was really hard to have a conversation with someone.
Definitely. I think that's one of the things that people don't realise. And I think if there's a message that people could get from me who deal with me in my business or day to day or whatever, just to understand a bit of an insight about it, the mobility thing, going back to what you said, I had those things and I bounced back quite quick from it, and I think that turned them off from being as thorough as I feel like they should have been. But also they were very good, so I'm not criticising what they've done. But at the same time, I think there's been an issue around saying what the deal is there, and then I, with some support at home, I've been able to cope and do things for myself like as almost as easy as I could do before. And it's not so much that is the lasting impact, it's more the mental, like you said. So the number one thing for me, I would say, Karl, is my memory. Short-term memory is shocking.
I'm surprised I remembered to turn up.
Yeah. Well, it was funny actually, because once it started getting on, I thought, fucking hell, he's forgot you. So I texted you and said, oh, I'm looking forward to the podcast, Karl. Yeah. I thought, shit, we're both as bad as each other. I was like, one of us must have forgot about it.
I have to, if I write it down or I put it in my phone, then chances are I'm not going to forget.
Yeah.
But I again said to you before, I was the type of person historically where I didn't used to have to write stuff down. Now I know that's dangerous. We would tell all of our clients to write things down, don't we? And make sure you don't forget stuff. But I was pretty switched on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So to suddenly go from being really switched on to even now, I would regard myself as probably only about 75% switched on. It's frustrating, and I went from 100% to 0, and I've had to build myself up over time, and I'm probably back to 75 now. And it is frustrating because if I don't write something down, I genuinely forget. And it's hard because I was saying to you, wasn't I, that some people get offended, and we are in a professional environment where we're helping other people, other businesses. And if you say you're going to ring someone on a certain date, or you're going to look into something and get back to them, you need to look into it and get back to them.
Yeah.
And I've had to change how I do a lot of things so I minimize the risk of forgetting. Taking phone calls when you're in the car. Before, I would do loads of miles. I'd do all my phone calls when I was in the car. And it was brilliant because you'd have a conversation with someone. Yeah, remember that. When I get out the car, when I forget... when you stop the journey, you remember what you meant to do and you crack on and you do it, or the day after.
Yeah.
Now, I try not to do them in the car because by the time I've got out the car and got to where I've got to, I forgot what the conversation was about.
Yeah.
You can't write it down.
Yeah.
So I've had to make adjustments in my day-to-day life, which the outside world won't see much of that. But it's frustrating when you're used to doing things in a certain way for 20 odd years, suddenly to be, found that you can't do it in that way is frustrating.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Karl. It's crazy. It's like, I think you're trying to keep up the facade as well of like everything's okay. I think you said a few minutes ago something like that, and but really, you're just trying to manage the situation the best you possibly can. And there's things like, forgetting things within seconds of thinking about it or talking about it, that I get that a lot. Exactly what you said, you'd be in mid-sentence and forget what track you were even on.
Yeah.
Words just don't come to you, or different words come to you, and it's not even related to the word that you meant to say. So it's embarrassing. 'Cause, I thought it was embarrassing like for quite a long time and thought, shit.
I still think it is embarrassing. Yeah. Again, I said to you the example. My worst one at the minute is remembering people's names. And the number of times I know exactly who they are,
Yeah.
someone who I would regard as a friend, I've seen you hundreds of times, and I'll walk up to them, and the moment I'm about to either shake the hand or give them a hug, the name goes.
Yeah.
And I've either got to go down that Teesside route of, "Now, mate, how are you doing?" Which you can only get away with that with so many people.
Yeah.
Or, as I've done a few times, you end up calling them the wrong name, which as soon as you say it, you think, "Shit, your name's not that." But how do you backtrack from that? And some people, I wouldn't say offended is the wrong word, but some people sort of look at it as if to go, how do you not know my name? Known each other for years. And they get a bit prickly.
Yeah.
But I think, again, that's why I wanted you to talk about it, because I thought it was good for you to talk about it, and why I'm open about it is the more people that understand how I am,
Yeah.
and the fact that I've really got to think about your name before I say it, hopefully they'll cut me a bit of slack if I do call them the wrong name.
I think it's good that we're doing this, to be honest, because I hope people do watch it, this episode, because they'll learn what's been going on and maybe why, if they've picked up on things. There's other things like, I was never ever kind of an arsey kind of a person, but sometimes I can be a little bit snappy, and it's totally not my nature. And I think it's to do with the after effects of what's happened. I don't know whether it's because it's stressful day to day trying to just go about your daily business. I was writing a list before you came in here about all the stuff that I find difficult, and it's mad, like the amount of areas of my life that it actually does affect is crackers. Like, I can't remember what medication to take.
I thought you were going to say you can't remember what's on your list.
Well, yeah, I'm mentally trying to recall it now, but and that wouldn't be surprising if that was the case, though. What I've also tried to do is normally bring like my iPad in here with notes.
Yeah.
But I thought it'd be quite cool to try and do it with somebody else who's on the same line of track as me, in terms of we've both had that same issue, to see if we can freestyle it. And I don't think it's going too bad considering. But yeah, man, like taking medication and when.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I cannot remember to save my life, and just random stuff. You know what I do is I wash the clothes in the washing machine, and then at the most fucking random time, elsewhere, like my house is in Teesside and I'll be in Newcastle or something. I think shit, I spent 3 days ago I put my washing on, it's gonna stink. They rewash it and then you forget about it again, and then just silly things, man. Like, but it actually makes your life quite difficult and stressful to deal with. And then bringing it to the sort of sphere of business, it's difficult, because if you're trying to lead a business and build a business, and particularly in advisory services, I think I was like what you referred to earlier, I never write anything down, but I remember it all, and it's always on the phone that I do in my business, but I'm finding it very difficult to do that now, because there's gaps, and I'm not performing at my usual kind of level.
Yeah, I was saying to someone the other day that I think I've gone through a bit of an acceptance phase that I probably won't be 100%.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to get back to 100%, don't get me wrong, I loved being 100% for God knows how many years before now, in terms of busy, full diary, running around. I loved being at that, performing at that level. I think when I was, I don't know, well, clearly at 0, but 25, 50%, I was frustrated that I couldn't do what I used to do.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest issue. So when you were saying about getting a bit raggy and stuff like that, I was a lot like that before, and it was out of pure frustration that I couldn't do it, or that I had forgot to do something, or something was doing my head in and I couldn't control it because I couldn't solve it, whereas before I could solve it. So I'd get a bit chewy and a bit arsey. And then I think I've tried not to think too much about what caused it. We've got our own theories, haven't we? Which, I don't know, it's probably another podcast in itself, isn't it?
Yeah,
but,
it is,
you know, I try and look at, well, was running at 100 miles an hour just clearly too much? You know, I'm not a young fella anymore. I'm 45. Is it just my body's way of saying, slow down a bit? You can't carry on at that pace. You know, footballers have to retire at a certain age, not because they've dropped the skill level, but just because they need to slow down, because the bodies can't run at that pace anymore. So I just came to the conclusion that, okay, well, if I'm at 75, if I'm saying I'm at 75, maybe 80 at the minute, can I live with that? Should I be happy with that? Some people don't even get back to 50% after a stroke or anything that's gone on with us too. So I should be grateful that I can still do 75% of what I did before, and rather than being frustrated at the 25% I can't do, just try and compensate for it and try and enjoy a bit of more free time, try and enjoy a bit more downtime. Don't put 5 meetings a day in the diary like I used to, and, you know, enjoy more of the easier things, like just meeting up with people and having a coffee, which you still probably get the same end result of getting things off your chest, helping them with their business, but it's in a much more sort of leisurely type of way, rather than it being in the office with a suit on or standing up at the university and presenting to 50 people. You could do it in different ways, can't you?
Yeah.
So, you know, the one thing that we both spoke about before is like energy levels. I know I don't have the energy levels that I had 12 months ago. Sometimes that pays me off, because I would love to be that sparky person that's vibrant, that other people buzz off. I don't think I've got that anymore. I try, and I'll still try and help other people, but I don't think it's where I was before. But maybe it's my turn to just stand aside and let someone who is 30 have their time and be that sparky, vibrant person, because, you know, maybe I just can't sustain it.
Yeah.
So rather than beat myself up over what I can't do, just be grateful of the 75%. And like I was saying to you, you know, we're still here and we're still knocking out of the park, really, compared to a lot of people. And we're still bloody lucky in what we've got, what we're doing, the things we have in our lives in terms of families and stuff like that. So we should be grateful rather than thinking about the 25% we can't do.
Oh, 100%. That's how I've got my mindset to where it is. I'm very grateful that, like I said before, that I've bounced back and not been left in a position like some of the people that I'd seen in those wards and in the clinics afterwards. And, you know, like that's a difficult one. You know, I don't know how those people can deal with it, and life changing for their families and whatnot. And I'm just very grateful that I've managed to come out the other side of it with only some daft little idiosyncrasies, is how I kind of look at it. But yeah, it's a challenge. I'm glad you said what you just said, because you know, it makes you think, if you're firing on all cylinders, what could you do and what could you achieve? I feel very proud of what we've done and what we've achieved, even though that it's been challenging with things like that in a pandemic, starting a business and all the rest of it. And it was actually sat with the accountant the other day, and they were saying, you know, like, realistically, to happen, all that shit to happen and get to what point you're at today, and get to, you know, being a business of that value and things like that is not a small feat in the best of times. So, you know, I feel very proud of doing that whilst dealing with some of that other stuff. And I feel like, you know, it's one of them things that it's just part of the journey in my life. And maybe it was some lessons to learn from that. I don't know what yet. I'm still figuring it all out. I don't know. It's
It's
funny.
not well, life's not a straight line journey, is it?
Mm.
There's ups, there's downs. The person who I've just been for lunch with, strangely enough, that's what we were chatting about. You know, again, not many people show the hand when things aren't good. They're happy to show it when they've got straight aces, but they very rarely share a duff hand. And I think, you know, it's life. It's what makes us who we are. You know, maybe, like you say, maybe my body was telling me to slow down. Maybe I wasn't capable of running at 100 miles an hour. If I'd have carried on running at 100 miles an hour, I could have had a heart attack and it could be completely worse. You don't know. You just don't know. I am a big believer in everything happens for a reason. So as long as you take the positives out of it and learn from it, then, you know, I'd be stupid to try and go back to trying to do everything that I was doing before, because we might not get a third chance, might we?
Yeah, exactly. And you got to just sort of evaluate everything. And at the same time, I think it's still possible to push on and try and do good things. And clearly you're doing that. I mean, you've got quite a significant business in the landscape in Teesside. You know, it's one of the prominent businesses, I would say.
Yeah, we've worked hard to get there, and thank God, you know, we built the team and built the brand that we did, because if we didn't, I don't know what would have happened to the business if I wasn't there. You know, I've spoke about what happened with my dad 15, 16 years ago when he was critically ill. The business was a very small niche business. Yeah. And it proved that the business was him.
So did you originally start with your dad then?
Yeah, so I ended up taking over my dad's business after he'd been poorly.
Right.
Which, you know, I've spoke about it many times, that he was really poorly, and it proved that the business was him. So our passion since I got involved, and then obviously my business partner Paul got involved, was all around trying to build a business that doesn't revolve around one person. Because then it makes it more sustainable, it hopefully makes it more valuable. It means then if you do want to exit or retire, it means it can continue. So, you know, looking at what happened with my dad, so we'd always had that as part of the agenda, which is why we spent so much money on building a team, processes, building a brand, and building something that, yes, I was the front man, or I'm the front man still, for the business, but build a business that doesn't revolve around me. And, you know, as a weird, cruel twist of fate, we got to test it out last year. I rather wish we didn't have to test it out, but in a weird way, it proved it works.
It's really funny because I didn't know that, but it's the same strategy that we'd used on the Noodle project, because it's my background and my experience, and it was always going to be built around that. But I knew if we wanted to scale and grow and continue to do that, hopefully in the future, it needs to be on its own legs. So it was trying to create an environment and processes and systems and brand and all that, so that it can stand up by itself after you've helped it to get there, if that's the right way to kind of phrase it. So it's funny. It's so weird. Every time we chat, it strikes me as like being really crazy about how aligned our kind of experiences have been. Yeah. Particularly with obviously comparing notes on the stroke and the fallout of it. But even before that, it seems like there's some similar sort of themes there.
But don't you think though that there's a lot, when you're open with people, you find, certainly in Teesside, there's a lot of good people who are out there to help you, support you, but then there's a great business community that is actually all there to try and big everyone else up. Yeah. And I think the more you speak about it and the more you're open about it, you find that other people have had similar challenges. And, you know, it is the downside of social media sometimes. We only get to see the good stuff. Yeah. And you think everyone else is on that straight line journey, and it can either get you down, it could knock you. You think, bloody hell, why am I struggling when they seem to be doing this? I bet you, hand on heart, if you, not necessarily chatting in this type of forum, but if you just chat over a coffee and get to know people, I bet that everyone will admit that they've had some stresses and struggles and issues to deal with. Just not everybody's fully convinced about being open about them. Whereas I actually think the one thing that I love about being here in Teesside and being a Teesside business is we should wear our heart on our sleeve. We should be open and honest. We should tell people everything, warts and all. And, you know, you're only going to genuinely help someone if you tell them everything, not just the good stuff. It's parenting, isn't it? If you just give all your kids sweets every day and take them bowling every day and don't let them do the homework and let them stay up till midnight watching YouTube on their iPad, they might love it, but they're not going to get a real sense of reality. You'd never do it as a parent, would you?
No.
You have to give them a bit of good and bad and the full holistic picture to actually properly help someone.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same in business. We've got so many little networks. You're probably literally only 1 or 2 at most degrees of separation from someone in that business community who can help someone. And that's the one massive thing that I'm passionate about. Why I think we should all just talk about these things and never shy away from saying, do you know what? It's been a bit shit recently.
Yeah.
Because chances are someone might have experienced something similar and they might be able to get you back on your feet far quicker than if you just try and keep it in and try and deal with it yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I think there is a bit of a wave of sort of entrepreneurs for good or whatever you want to call them in the Tees area. And I think if you go to any of us, we'd always meet up and help and try and take you through that journey with us and impart some knowledge or experience or lessons you've learned and things like that. And I think that's the importance of having a coach. I don't know if you've got a coach, or a mentor.
Yeah, we about might be 12 years ago, we took on a non-exec director. Gary Lumby, who lots of people know Gary. I'd worked with Gary in the banking world previously, and he was, I'll use the word retiring, although he probably doesn't want to use that word retiring from the banking world. He was leaving the banking world, and we were his first NED role. He's obviously had dozens since. And I think having that external advocate, if that makes sense, on the board or someone to chat to and run things past, it can either give you confidence, it can reassure you in decision making, it can open doors for you in terms of new contacts, improve your processes, and it just be that right hand. I'll use the word right hand or phrase right hand man, but you know what I mean in terms of just having that person alongside you to help you get to where you are, because it can be a lonely space if you're doing it yourself. Yeah,
100%. I think if you've got that resource as a sounding board, whether it's a NED or a mentor or whatever, they all serve the same purpose. And I like that there's what's the word I'm bloody trying to think of? A sort of unofficial, unstructured peer version of that in Tees Valley, I think. We're going to do a project there now, like I was telling you about it the other day with the network, where the overarching theme is specifically that. And the idea is to have the large entities and the smaller entities all come together and assist each other, because there's lessons to be learned in both directions. The smaller entity might engage their customers better than a big organisation, and they might have something to be able to share with them and solve some problems like that. So that's called the mix that I was telling you about the other day, and I'm excited about getting that out there specifically for the purpose of being able to sit with each other and networking in a social way, but support each other more than anything else. So I'm looking forward to being able to get people like yourself involved in that. So what's the future saying then, Karl?
Bugger off and live in Singapore. I'm only joking. Did I tell you that story the other day?
I know you went to the GP without me, which I was pretty pissed about.
I know, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's the first time I've ever been to Singapore, and I love the place.
Yeah.
I did come back and tell my wife I'm selling up and I'm going to go and live in Singapore, which is a pipe dream, isn't it? But
yeah,
that'd be pretty random. You know that I forgot to take my medication if I do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what's the future. I think from a business point of view, things are still going well. Obviously, hesitancy a little bit in terms of markets aren't great at the moment, so I can't sit there with a big smile on my face because clients are obviously impacted in the turbulence of the markets. As a business, things are going brilliant. But I think we're in for some choppy times, aren't we? I think every business over this next 6 to 12 months, I think it's going to be difficult. So I think certainly as a business, it's a case of, refining what we do, making sure we're there to hold clients' hands and make sure that we're reassuring them. That's the important thing right now. Personally, I still need to lose a stone in weight. That was one of the side effects of the drugs I was put on, by the way. I've put on a fair bit of weight because obviously couldn't exercise for a long time as well. Yeah. So I really want to try and get fit. And I've had a bit of Singapore was one example, but I've had a bit of a year where I've thought, sod it, I'm going to just tick a few boxes and do some daft things.
Yeah.
It ain't sustainable long term, otherwise I'll be divorced or bankrupt or
both.
Or in jail or something. But yeah, it's
we can get you on the TV, Karl. What's that show, Banged Up Abroad?
Oh yeah,
we get you on there. Don't worry about it.
So yeah, I think I don't know. I'm really enjoying this as I go into the winter months. I'm looking forward to just having a bit of a slower pace of life, being at home, enjoying the simple things of going for a walk and having a Saturday or Sunday where you've got nothing in the diary. That sounds really boring, but really, really just enjoy those simple things. Saturday, perfect example. We had an unexpected child-free day.
Yeah.
Said to the wife, right, what do you want to do? Should we go to the borough match, pretend we're young, go around town, do all those things? Didn't vote for that. Do we go to Stokesley and go for some nice food and go drinking all day? Didn't go for that. Do you want to get the jobs done that we never get done and then just go and sit in the local pub and have some pints? We went for that.
Yeah.
Literally 50 yards down the road and got all those tedious little jobs. That's old, isn't it?
Nah, man.
So simple things, honestly.
I think a lot of people, get past their 20s or whatever and start to be, in that zone where they like to have a chill day, man. So you're not that old, bro. We're not that old yet.
I'm older than you.
Yeah, but still. It's good stuff, mate. I think you're doing some awesome stuff around and about the area. I think this has been quite an interesting conversation in the sense of we're revealing things about ourselves personally to the outside world. Maybe people might have learnt some stuff about us both and our journey over the last year and might connect some dots with that's probably why they don't ever ring me back or whatever. But yeah, it's been good to chat to you, bro.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. I'm glad I encouraged you to speak openly about it as well yourself.
No, definitely.
I think better.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think it's good to sometimes get it out there. People know what the deal is. And but I think we're both on the same page. It's not about getting some kind of vote of sympathy or whatever. It's just people know maybe a little bit better of how you are right now so they can understand where you're coming from or, deal with your sort of shortcomings as a result of those things easier because they're aware of them maybe. So it's a good thing if it maybe empowers some other people who have had other things or similar things that they've dealt with. Man, business and just life in general, but business life is a lonely fucking place, man. And you have all the stresses on your neck about, everyone's wages going out on the end of the month, this, that, and the other. I need to grow my business. Fucking hell, the Prime Minister's up to the 7th version at the moment, or whatever it is. The markets are all over the place. All of us, no matter what business and industry we're in, have stresses, and it's very difficult. And sometimes I think it can be lonely in the sense of if you don't have people who are on that journey with you, to understand why you can't give as much time to them and things like that. Then when you apply on top of it something like what happened to us, and then it's kind of like, no energy in the afternoons because you're drained from putting it into work during the day or forgetting things or whatever the case may be. Those are all like crazy challenges to overcome. And, I think if this type of thing can help other people to maybe highlight some of the things that they've been through and the challenges and experience that they've had, then that's what the platform's all about, right? It's to give an opportunity to somebody like myself and yourself to say something, maybe inspire some other people to do good things, maybe inspire some people to sort of talk about things that are on their mind at a particular time or challenges they're facing, or just seek out help from people in the network or their pals or whatever, man. It's all good. I think it's all about the love out there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. There's plenty of huggers out there.
Exactly. So, all right, cool. We'll unless there's any other bombshells you've got hidden up your sleeves.
No, I'll save those. I'll have a think. Trying to think.
We did say originally, for the record, that this was supposed to include our pal Matty Ord.
Matty does want to talk to you.
Yeah, I know. So we'll get Matty on.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll have a joint session where we can all just have a bit of a crack, because
we wouldn't get a word in though. You do know that, don't you?
Well, we'll just let him take over. But yeah, we'll definitely do it again, bro. Is what my point is. So thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers, mate.
And
appreciate that.
I wish you all the best in the future, and I hope things get better in terms of health and everything.
Fingers crossed on you.
Cool. All right, dudes, this episode has been Karl Pemberton from Active Financial. If you're looking for financial advice anywhere in the UK, particularly if you're from Tees Valley, Teesside area, then hit them up. What's the website, Karl?
activefinancialplanners.co.uk.
What's the telephone, Karl?
01642 765 957.
What's the Twitter handle?
Active Financial.
I'm just taking the piss now.
Oh, you are?
I was trying to see how much of the memories go when it's going to short circuit. I'm only joking, man. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on, Karl, and we'll see you all again soon, hopefully. Peace out.